Hi guys, this is Wenzes from Below the Radar Above the System, and now I want to talk to you about FI versus FE and INFJs. This has come from a question in the comment section below the YouTube videos, and that's why I always encourage you to either post your questions or your opinions or some kind of ideas you have either in the comment section or in the idea pool. The links you can find now below every video, and in the comment section, because there are always new ideas that are coming up that we can talk about and develop, and I think it's very interesting and we can all grow from that. So the question was mainly about why are we supposed to not engage in FI? Aren't we why can't we deal with FI? If you read some articles online, it's always like INFJs, avoid your shadow functions or avoid those functions that are not in your primal stack, the fourth function, which are for INFJs and IFE, TI, and SE. Well, and with FI, it's always like different sources have different opinions. On the one hand, if you look into socionics, there it said, your FI for us is our demonstrative function, so we pretty much can engage with it in it. Almost as strong as we can engage in our NI. You can find it on some socionics pages. On the other hand, we're told, not to look into those functions and that we should concentrate more on the first four I was talking about. But what's interesting is when we get information, why not use FI? Why should we engage in FE? And my point on this, or my opinion on this, is actually very clear. Yes, you can engage in FI, but there's just to some degree you'll be able to manage it, and then you'll have to understand that there's a limit to it, and then you have to use FE. I'll make an example. For example, you meet a person and that person has a specific worldview. You are in the first instance engaging through your NI. That means you look into that person's worldview, you try to understand it, you absorb it. This is a natural, completely automatical process. There's nothing you can really do about it. This is just like when you go out in the world, that's what you do when you don't even think about it. When you're in a relaxed state, this is what happens. So every time you talk to somebody and you absorb their worldview in a way, you don't even realize that this is something that is very specific to you. But if you look throughout your life, or if you meet other INFJs and you see the way they're behaving, you'll see that there's the sense of I'm not forcing my energy out all the time. If I'm in a relaxed state or if I'm in my natural state as an INFJ, I do absorb others, emotions, physical states, and so on. So, and if you meet somebody who has value system that is making you feel bad, it does affect you. So let's say you meet that one person, that person has this understanding of if somebody is not letting me do what I want, then that's a bad person, just as an example. And that's something that person really has as a value, something they push forward through their FE, because FE is about expressing and making other people feel something, transmitting it. So if this reaches you and you feel like this is going against your values, or since you absorb that person's value become your value, so you pull that into your FI. So you don't have that much control over what you allow into your FI and what you don't allow into your FI. I've seen INFPs and ISFPs, when it comes to really moral values, what is important to them, they're not that easily manipulated. I mean, they have sometimes, the feeling of I'm not being a good person, but more of what I do for other people or how other people view me, but they don't have an internal thing of what other people's moral values are really being inflicted onto me, because they have a very firm and very strict understanding of what their values are. I see it in my ISFP friend, I see it in my INFP friend. They have very, very well developed understanding of, I believe this is right. I think you should do this. You know, everybody has their different things, but they're very convinced of their things. And you see more and more how they project that, how they believe that. And it's not so easily manipulated. You know, it's not something that changes. For us, it's different. We don't have that much control over that. It's specifically because it's an unconscious function. So we get like all those values from other people, and if we're not using FE, those people are keep on like giving us all those emotions, because we have this energy that gives people permission to let out their emotion, to let out their energy, their truth, and so on. This is part of being an INFJ, and I think this is a very natural process. It also invites criticism, which I'm going to talk about in another video, but this is generally what happens. And what we do is, when we take in other people's value, we kind of like absorb their FE into our and we absorb their values into our value system, so we can't really distinguish what is really mine and what is others. So if that other person feels like, if that person is not, you know, is just thinking about themselves, then they're being selfish or so on. Meaning, you have you meet somebody and that person gives you an impression, if you're doing what you think is right for you and somebody else is suffering because of it, just because they get a feeling of, okay, that makes me feel weak if that person is being strong, and they give you this constant feeling of you're being a bad person if you're living your truth, you're being a bad person if you're thinking about succeeding and thinking that it's okay to be more successful than somebody else or happier than somebody else or something, and showing that off. And you kind of absorb that. You try on the one hand to get like a system going, understanding how to deal with that. You do that through your TI, but mainly you do absorb those FI things. And now's the question, what you're going to do about it. As I said, if you were an INFP or an ISFP, you could much more easily not absorb them. You know, just say, okay, absorb maybe something else, but I'm sure as hell not going to absorb that person's moral values if they go against mine, because this is a conscious function for them, and they can very well decide what is mine and what is yours. So since we can't do that, we have to engage in FE. And the reason why we have to engage in FE is not so much about, being nice to everybody, or, you know, creating harmony, how it's always portrayed if you look at it from a very superficial level. It's more about those unspoken social rules, how we always say. It's about giving people a sense of, I accept that and I don't accept that certain behavior. And in order to really transmit FE, you have to feel it. Like you can't transmit an emotion if you're not feeling it. And in a lot of ways, we try to like not, we're so focused on, not letting the other person's moral get to our own, although it kind of happens, that we try to numb ourselves out and try to like get a system of, okay, this is how that person feels, but I'm not going to accept that, and so on. So you try to build a system through TI, not understanding that those values still get into you. And the solution to this is to tell people, stop. There are gonna be consequences when you put that value onto me. Meaning, let's say you're in a situation, like I've had that at work, you have like a new group of people, and since I have this, I don't know if it's my different energy, the way I go about things, but I could tell that there was some kind of feeling of, trying to put me down or my work down, and it was not justified. Like, I don't mind, there's of course things I do wrong, but just the way it happened in a way that was not something I liked. And I've learned that also with relatives, with friends, just the way something is transmitted, the emotion that gets transferred, I didn't like. And so what I said was, no, I'm not gonna have that. I didn't say it, of course, like this. It's more of a, how can you transmit emotion? Instead of being, okay, well, that person That's their worldview, and I have my worldview. Understand that there are limits. There are limits to your TI, and there are even much more limits to your FE. Or especially their combination. But if you use your FE and tell that person, I don't like that. Don't do that. I'm not going to have that. This is not okay. And you really let that emotion that those people are really transmitting onto you, you really let it happen instead of trying to control it through your TI. So you feel that it makes you uncomfortable. You're much more sensitive to changes in this kind of way. So let's say if you're in a happy place and you're not numbing yourself out how you would do in an unconscious way, and in the unconscious phase you don't really realize, am I being treated badly right now or not? Because you're just so used to using this FI-TI combination. But if you're like in a really happy place and you're constantly making sure you don't let energy in that makes you feel bad, then you're really sensitive to those things. You really feel what's happening. You see when somebody's acting in a way that makes you feel bad. So once you feel that, and then you have a reaction of, listen, I don't like this. You can say it in a way that is firm, that is something you really believe in, because this is how you feel. When you really feel at that moment, and when you let that feeling sink in, that this doesn't feel good how they make me feel, you can react. You can do an FE reaction and really tell them like this. Like I've had this conversation with my father last year. I came, I was in Bulgaria visiting him, and we had, conversation, and then he just kept on, being, this sucks, and this is not good, and then so on. And it's just like a natural response for him. And I really freaked out. I used my FE in a way to tell him, listen, I don't like it. Don't talk to us like this. If you want to say something, say it normally. I don't need to get your negative energy put into me. I'm not your emotional psychic garbage can, And it's more about the way you transmit it. It's not so much about saying the words, because you can say, listen, I don't like what you're doing. Or you can really say, listen, I don't like what you're doing. And, excuse me. And then you don't even need those words. You can just say, no, it's completely right how I did it. Things like this work. And I've seen it with my father. I've seen it with the coworkers. Once I did that, once I showed those people, listen, I don't like this, and I'm going to put that negative emotion back to you, they really feel that that is something that they don't want. That happens unconsciously. It's not like when you react like in an FE matter, they look at you and say, okay, that made me feel bad, so I'm not going to treat that person like this. It's just something they unconsciously understand, that they hit a boundary with you. This is what FE is about, creating boundaries, saying, I don't like this. Because you're not that person who can just, go through life like an FE dominant, for example, who can just constantly transmit emotions all the time. You have to make sure that when somebody does something that really makes you feel bad, and that you can morally accept within yourself, that you set those boundaries towards those people, then those people change their behavior towards you. So in the future, they're not going to transmit their FI onto you when it comes into that direction, because unconsciously they know there's a boundary. That is something I cannot do with that person. And that is something we can all do. Like if you think about it, how many friends, if you look at all your friends, there are certain friends you can say certain things to about certain topics. You can express your opinions about some things, and that person is going to react completely neutral, and other people are going to get really upset because that's an area that matters to them. And so this is how it is with us. So the difference between FI and FE in that matter is that we're not able to take in everybody's state, emotional state, their worldview and so on, and then completely have conscious of our FI and say, okay, but I'm not going to accept that person's moral values. I'm just gonna put that aside. It doesn't really work like this. There's always something that is being pulled into us, and this is why we do get depressed, why we do get lonely, and why we have like problems with self-confidence because of this thing. But if you engage in FE, then you're really saying, I don't want you to do this. So these people who are around you are going to stop doing that. Maybe not the first time completely, but they do it a second time, they do it a third time, and then they stop. Or if you see like this is not working at all, then you can completely go somewhere else. That's why I always encourage you to find an outlet where you can let emotions out all the time. I do it through music. It's not like somebody's definitely listening to me when I, let's say I have a song and I post that song and that's how I feel at that moment. It's not so much is somebody actually listening to that. It's just that I practice transmitting emotions, really finding an outlet of energy to put those emotions out. And you get a better feeling of it because you do have control over your creative function, over FE. It's just that we don't have the habit of doing it constantly. But once you really get into that habit, it really works. Like I can tell you from experience, and this is not something I knew to that extent when I started those videos, for example. I just now realize that when I look at my friends, when I look at my family, when I look at my coworkers, how it actually works. You set those boundaries, as in you tell people not to do that, and then they will inflict less FI onto you. That's the whole point. And then there's enough FI that you can absorb, that you can deal with, that is not overwhelming to you. But you have to know that there are limits to how much FI you can take. And in order to avoid taking in too much of other people's FI, especially if that is something that is not making you as a person feel good. For example, you're a person like me who loves to grow. I love to be a pioneer in things, to do things, and to be proud of it, and to inspire people with that. And if I have somebody around me who feels uncomfortable because of that, and I never put boundaries up, then they make me feel bad for who I am. And this is what we have to avoid, because everybody has something about them that makes other people uncomfortable. The question is, you have to find a way to show other people, listen, I'm deserving to be a part of this group, a part of society, a part of this world as much as you. And there's certain things that are important to me that I'm going to fight about, that I'm going to really stick to, that I'm not going to be wishy-washy about or then back down, and I'm just not going to accept. And once you do that, people change. They change the way they adapt to you. Unless it's something that they can take at all and they're not like your coworkers, so they have to work with you, they can leave. But don't be the one who always backs down or always absorbs and then thinks they can sort it out through simply FI. It's a combination of both, taking in FI, but also putting FE out to tell people no. It's not just it's not a positive or negative thing, FE. It's a social unspoken rule. Things you do not accept or do accept. If somebody's being really nice and you put out a very positive emotion, you'll get that in more and more. And through the combination of those both, you can create a great balance and, an inner life that helps you create a better life on the outside, on the inside, and then it's like the opposite of a vicious circle. It just like keeps getting better, and it's like an upward spiral. So that's it on that topic, and I see you in the next video. Oh yeah, and this is what I'm gonna do now. In all the videos, I never do this, but I really have to, because I realized I just completely missed out on that. So if you like the videos, please subscribe, like it, share it with other INFJs or friends, because I really realized that there's so much good information here when I read your comments and everything, and I'm so glad about it, and I really want to reach more people who can benefit from this. So if you like it, if you think it has helped you, then share the message, help me rise up the video views, and yeah, talk to you soon. Bye. Equals happiness. The more you work on yourself, the more you develop your strengths and apply them and help people with them. This is just what they've been brought up with. And at the same time, there's a huge control in INFJs by not showing what their needs